Hello, I'm ShieldWar100 and welcome to another of my Batman Miniatures Game 3rd Edition battle reports. Today we're focusing right in there on a confrontation between a crew led by Two-Face and a Soldiers of Fortune crew led by Thomas Wayne. Bruce Wayne's father from an alternate timeline where he survived and his son was killed, thus leading to him becoming the Batman. He can be a sidekick or leader for the Soldiers of Fortune crew in this, representing his run of events in the Batman from the Rebirth series, I believe. And yes, so if you want some background on him, that's where you'll find him. Okay, yes, please check the description below in the video to see an offer from the Top Hatted Hamster web store to get yourself 10% off your first or next purchase. And yes, without further ado, let's check out on which models are in the teams. Well, the Two-Face crew remains the same as when I last used it. I haven't got any more models painted in the meantime, so I haven't been able to change anything up, but I was rather happy with how they turned out last time anyway, and yeah, I'm quite satisfied to keep them as they were. I don't think any model particularly let the team down, shall I say. You can see Two-Face there at the back with his two lovely young ladies, Sugar and Spice, as sidekicks. I see no reason to change them out, and I think they're just great models to have on the board. There's still the four same gangsters, all with their ferocious firearms, ready to do their part as well. I'm looking forward to seeing how they're used against this new crew. Okay, oh, I also should mention that none of the models have been given any purchasable war gear because two reasons. Firstly, the Two-Face crew doesn't actually have a purchasable war gear list as yet. It might be something they put into the compendium or not. But also, this crew also tends to use up its complete allowance of funding anyway in guns, regardless. Just bear with me a second. Lily, come on, move. Lily, you... Technical difficulties, folks. We'll move on to the next crew now. And the Soldiers of Fortune crew weighing in at 6 figures, which is just one less than the Two-Face crew. Soldiers of Fortune crews traditionally don't necessarily come in very high on the model count. They can take some... there's lots of temptations in their available models list. And Thomas Wayne's Batman is very much amongst them. He's, like I said, he's a sidekick, which means he can normally be taken in addition to one of the other heavy hitter leaders such as Bane himself or whatever, but you would have very few points left over after that. Thomas Wayne is solid. He's a Batman. He doesn't have quite so much mobility as your normal Batman would, but he has those dual handguns which I've given him. He can have the Amazonian sword instead, but I like the more traditional look for Thomas Wayne with his dual handguns there, so that's what we'll be using. As you can see, we've also got some familiar faces in terms of the Elite Op on your far right and the Infiltrate Op in the middle there at the back. Standard staples, I think. I do like them and I'm familiar with them, which is very important. Militia on the far left, the powerhouse of close combats with medium armor, which should see her hopefully quite well against the bullets. She's quite a durable figure, and mobile too. And of course, to her left and the right of her, from our point of view, you've got the one of the militia who I've used before. He's relatively inexpensive, but he has a reasonable gun, and he's a veteran, so he fulfills most of the objectives in the objective card deck, so that's good. Most colourfully of all, in the centre, you've probably noticed there, that is the Psycho Pirate, one of the Legends of the Dark Knight series oddball free agents. He's relatively inexpensive, and I had some points left over, and he fit the bill as a model I haven't used before ever, so I'm looking forward to getting him out. His basic deal is he's pretty inoffensive himself, but he projects a bubble which affects enemy models within 8 inches of him, and that's sort of like as he goes on. He can choose one of 4 different effects, which I'll go through as the need arises. Okay, but some of them are particularly vicious. If the enemy takes him out, then that bubble disappears, so he may not last very long on the board, but we'll see. And yes, so let's get on and deploy some figures and find out what's going on. Okay, I've just completed setup, and all the lampposts and sewer markers are down as well as the crews. So let's show you who set up where. First things first, I drew Vanguard as the deployment zones, nice and simple. 12-inch corners deployment zones. However, if you read the text, one friendly model can be deployed up to 4 inches outside the deployment zone. So here we go. For the Soldiers of Fortune crew, they're all having to be forced into this lovely park that I made, so I'm damn well using it. So we've got Thomas Wayne Batman in the middle to give inspire, having the Psycho Pirate carrying behind him. I love that pose, incidentally. You've got the two gun-wielding henchmen there, the standard gun-wielding henchmen. Militia has managed to deploy further forward due to the deployment rule, and the hidden rule has allowed the infiltrate op to deploy out of sight over here, behind the construction office. I'm going to move around the table now just to show you where the Two-Face crew has been deployed. So as you can see, they have the opposite corner here. A little bit cloaked in shadow, but hopefully they won't detract too much. They'll be moving out of it soon enough, I'm sure. Two-Face in the middle to give his big old inspiration radius. You've got Tommy, the Tommy gun toting henchman there. The two guys with the more long rifle-y, the Winchester and the bolt action rifle, just having no effective range. They can pretty much go up here, I hope, and dominate the area. We'll see. And the remaining crew members are down poking around here, ready to move out into the streets in the first turn, I'm sure. Okay, let's get on with the game. Just one last piece of business. Having drawn the initial starting hands, the Two-Face crew has elected to go with the coin as showing the good side. So it's the good side cards which will be scoring at first. Okay, right, without any more messing around, let's get on with activations and turn one. Take the lead and raise the plan phases are both now complete for turn number one. No cards played from either crew's hand in either of those two phases, so no early doors indication as to how they're going to try and score yet. The initiative roll was made, and we're using black for Batman and blue for Two-Face again, although this Batman is different to the last one. But as you can see, even with the mastermind bonus for Thomas Wayne, he didn't need it. He has initiative this turn. Audacity counters, nice and simple. The two guys at the top here with their immensely good special actions for aiding their shooting have been granted audacity. Two-Face himself has got one, as has Spice around the corner. In terms of the Soldiers of Fortune, you can see Infiltrate Op has been sneaked one there, and back here, early doors, lots of people have got inspiration, so it's not too crucial at this point, but Psycho Pirate, Batman, Thomas Wayne Batman, and of course, and Militia there. Hopefully get use of out of her super jumper at some point this turn. Okay, let's move on to activations then. Despite having initiative, the Thomas Wayne Batman crew with Soldiers of Fortune elected to pass. They have one model less than the Two-Face crew, so they have one pass, and they opted to use it straight away. That forced Two-Face to go first, and he elected Gangster number 6, Luigi, with the Tommy gun, to have to move first. Using the Gangster's rule, Luigi took 3 points of enervating for future and gained plus 6 inches to his movement. Pretty useful to break out from your deployment zone in turn 1. He was inspired despite not having audacity, and he put down a suspect marker next to the little hobo area next to the brownstone blocks. Okay, let's move on, but before we actually, just to say, from the Two-Face crew's hand, I'm just going to zoom out to help give an idea as to where he is in the grand scheme of things. So he's over there, and yes, from the Two-Face crew's hand came Justice, Two-Face's signature card, played as an objective for 3 victory points. It lasts until it goes on until it's done with, so it could be in play till the end of the game. Remove at least 2 enemy models as casualties with the Judgement trait. The Judgement trait happens when Two-Face knocks a model unconscious, and there's a 50-50 chance he'll take them out of action altogether. This card will stay in play for the remainder of the game, so if Two-Face there manages to knock people out, then maybe it'll score, maybe it won't, but it's nice to have, and it does help cycle the deck some. Okay, let's carry on. Soldiers of Fortune have got to move now. While Militia just had a turn and a half to kick things off in style for the Soldiers of Fortune. First of all, she was in contact with the sewer marker over here at the beginning of the game. First of all, out of the Soldiers of Fortune's hand for a resource, free for all was played. I don't think we've seen that one before, so I'll quickly explain. For 2 resource points, so it's not cheap. For the remainder of the round, friendly models may use a dose without spending it. Well, Militia has a venom dose, so she took it, and she used her freebie manipulate action from being inspired to move all the way over to here. She used her second manipulate action to put down a suspect marker, thus playing invasion from the hand. There's the text. 2 points. This marker will count down. If that suspect marker is still there, then 2 points will be scored for Soldiers of Fortune. We've seen it before, so I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. She still had her special action left, so she used her super jump to jump over here 6 inches into base contact with the gangster, so it makes him a bit, so he can't, his Tommy gun is not light, he can't use it in base contact with an enemy model unless he chooses to use one of the blood money markers, of course, but we'll come to that later if it happens. But yes, so Militia, despite moving quite far forwards and possibly being quite exposed, she has taken a venom dose, which does invoke her venom in rage, which gives her invulnerability 2. That, coupled with her medium armor she's gambling, will keep her safe for the remainder of the turn. Okay, well then, let's move on. She could have actually started pummeling the gangster, incidentally, with her, but she opted to put down the suspect marker instead, get some points on the board perhaps. Okay, let's move on. Winchester-toting Wallace was up next for the Two-Face crew, and he had a fairly simple turn. He did have audacity, remember. He used his movement action to move up to the corner for the best view possible. He he put down a suspect marker, and he also used his special action to use his follow me trait on the guy next to him with the bolt action rifle to give him a +4 move counter should he ever need it in the future. Okay, I think that completes the Two-Face crew's activation for this round. Soldiers of Fortune bade Roger Hayden, aka the Psycho Pirate, to activate next, and he also used the sewer marker. Oh, he's just moved out of contact with it a little bit. There we are. He also used the sewer marker to instant transmission all the way over towards the Two-Face crew's deployment zone. He decided that at the beginning of his activation he has to choose an emotion to emit as a bubble around him, and he opted all enemy models within 8 inches of him would be feeling fear for the remainder of the turn, which will affect them in terms of their attack and defense die rolls will be subject to a -1 penalty whilst any models are within 8 inches of his bubble effect, which is pretty powerful. Obviously it leaves him a bit exposed, but he's got a little bit of support over here from Infiltrate Op, and you have to take risks to make use of this guy, and yeah, I'm looking forward. I just wanted to see how he worked out, so there you go. Played from the hand of the Soldiers of Fortune, Global Offensive came out for 3 victory points. It will score at the end of the round, as you can see, and there have to be more Soldiers of Fortune models with the veteran trait, should I say, than there are enemy suspects by the end of the turn. Okay, we'll see if that pans out for them, and we'll go on to the Two-Face crew. Two-Face elected to make Gangster number 1 go next. He didn't have audacity, but he was within inspire range of the big guy himself. So Tommy moved along next to the Psycho Pirate and put down a suspect marker. In so doing, sorry, pardon me for the rocking there, he played 2 make this better. We saw that in the last game for 2 victory points. There's the text. He put down this suspect marker within 4 inches of the Psycho Pirate, and there's already another suspect within 4 inches of Militia over there, so that was a genuine score there, and 2 points for the Two-Face crew, the first card to be guaranteed, to be scored for the game. Okay, moving on to the Soldiers of Fortune. Staying over this side of the board, the Infiltrate Op elected to activate. She first of all used her hacking. She had audacity, if you recall, so she used her hacking ability to move the suspect marker that this gangster had just played over to here. She moved around the corner and then revealed it. She's looking at taking down the number of suspect markers on the Two-Face Crew's side, so that there's more chance of the objective played earlier of coming to fruition, of them having more veterans and enemy suspects. She then played Cyber Attack from the Soldier of Fortune hand. There's the text, there's a lot. Basically it puts a counter on this suspect up here and this suspect up here. If those suspect markers are still in play when the counter reaches 0, it counts down each time an enemy model activates. Then Soldier of Fortune will score these 2 cards. So basically the Two-Face Crew have got to either remove their own suspect markers or pay the price in giving points to the Soldiers of Fortune. So pretty productive turn. That concludes Infiltrate Ops. She didn't shoot, she wanted to do suspect work instead. That's her bag, yo. So let's go. I opted to go with Two-Face next himself. He moved around from where his Audacity marker is, because I forgot to pick it up once again, running theme, and he moved into contact with the Psycho Pirate, into the bubble of fear, as we're going to call it. But he then put down a suspect marker just here, instead of deciding to clobber the free agent there. He also played 2 faces of the coin, which we've seen as an objective. Good side, of course, have an even number of friendly suspects in play by the end of the round. So the Two-Face Crew is gambling that there are no Soldiers of Fortune models left to activate which can actually reach any suspect markers and therefore affect this particular card, but we'll see how the game goes at the in the recount phase later on. So back to the Soldiers of Fortune for now. The Malicious Soldier activated next, and he didn't have Audacity, but he was inspired by Batman's presence, so he decided to move forward and put down a suspect marker still within the confines of the park. Having completed his activation, the Invasion, played earlier on this suspect marker over here, had finally reached its countdown of 0, and so 2 points in the bag for the Soldiers of Fortune just then. Spice, one of the sidekicks on the Two-Face Crew, decided to go next. She moved around to the front of the metro station, in between it and the bus stop just there, and put down a suspect marker. When she did so, I'm just going to see if I can get this in focus, she played Closing Argument from the hand. So I'm zoomed in, so it's a bit wonky, but it's let's see if I can zoom back out again. There we go. 3 points, lots of text. Basically there were Two-Face suspect markers within 4 inches of either lamppost or sewer markers. There's this one here, and the one that Two-Face just put down, almost like he knew. And yes, for 3 points, when this countdown of other models activating reaches 0, that will score 3 points. Lots of objectives being played with numeric counters on, lots of countdowns ticking away. Thankfully they're not too difficult to keep track of now with my little dice system. Okay, let's move on. We're now on Duke, aka the Elite Op. He moved forward through the park. He actually really wanted to vault over the fence, take impaired movement, and move out into the streets to start exerting board control there, but unfortunately he's all too cognizant of the 2 long rifles in the Capital Metro station and how exposed he'd be there, so he decided to keep a bit of cover and move this side of the railings instead. He just moved up. He has Audacity, but he can't put down a suspect marker because he's too close to the other one. At the end of his turn, the Cyber Attack scored. The countdown ran out on the Two-Face suspect markers, and so that's 2 points scored for the Soldiers of Fortune right away. Sugar went next and simply opted just to move forwards. She didn't have Audacity, so there's not much else that she can do. She played as a resource 2 faces of the coin, which is a card that has multiple definitions depending upon whether you're on your good side or twisted side of your coin. She's on the good side, so basically what it does is it puts down a coin marker, which I'm using as a spare blood money token just there. Defense bonuses all round for friendly models within 4 inches of that until the end of the turn. It won't really actually do anything this turn, but it does help her to cycle the deck some and maybe get some better cards for scoring in the hand. Okay, let's move on. Last to activate for the Soldiers of Fortune was Batman himself, and he used his Bat Claw and his usual pretty high movement to move all the way from back here into the centre of the board and put down a suspect marker. No cards to play to score from that, but just put him in a pretty good position to start influencing any direction he chooses as of next turn. Okay, let's finish off moves. It's just Two-Face Crew to go. Gangster 7, aka Sergio, activated next. He had Audacity, but really nothing to use it on. It's not really been a wasted turn for him as such, despite the fact he'd sit there like a sphinx, not actually doing anything. He's been his bolt action rifle has been dominating the middle of the board and preventing freedom of movement, shall I say, for the Soldiers of Fortune quite a lot across everywhere. I mean, it's the reason why even Militia at the beginning of the turn had to take action to move away from that lamppost, etc., etc., all sorts of things. He's holding on to his ammunition. He's going to continue. He's going to hopefully dominate next turn as well. And yes, that's that. But he's just giving him Audacity gave him the ability to. He's got precise aim, you see. So that would have made any attack rolls very powerful indeed from him. And he's too scary to be ignored. Anyway, having completed his turn, the closing argument objective counted down to 0 finally. So that's 3 victory points for the Two-Faced crew as the counters here and here reach 0. Okay, let's move on to the recount phase and let's just clean up a bit. Okay, final phase of turn number 1 just finished off. In terms of cards that have scored, 2 faces of the coin for Two-Face has come to fruition for them, have an even number of suspects in play, and they have 4. Okay, they had options to get more or less in, so they made sure they coasted it out with the right number. Unfortunately for the Soldiers of Fortune crew, Global Offensive did not come off for them because there are 4 models on their side with the veteran trait, and as I just said, there's 4 Two-Faced suspects, and there'd need to be more veterans in play to score this. Didn't really factor that into the crew building when I took Thomas Wayne and the Psycho Pirate that they weren't veterans, but nonetheless 4 is still a reasonable number, and nonetheless it ties in with the whole forcing your opponent to react part of the Soldiers of Fortune deck. So I mean, I'm it's a bummer, but something you weren't always going to be able to score them, otherwise it'd be too easy. Okay, no actual attacks made in this first round, I don't think, so no damage to take off at all, or models to retrieve from KO, but I get the feeling that in turn 2 this is going to turn into a much more violent confrontation. Both sides have got themselves manoeuvred into pretty good positions to start the carnage next turn, but let's see. The first and second phases, Take the Lead and Raise the Plan respectively for turn number 2, have now been completed. It was a Two-Face victory for the initiative roll this time. From the hand of the Soldiers of Fortune crew, Domination was played. 3 points, we've seen that lots of times before when this crew comes out. There's the text. Domination marker is down here, the red on white one. If at the end of the turn there's more Soldiers of Fortune models nearby it than Two-Face crew ones, then that will be 3 points. It's a bit of a tall order sometimes, like this time, but it's a freebie. Maybe it will score, maybe it won't. It's 3 points if it does though, so it's very worth keeping an eye on. From the Two-Face crew side, played as an objective, it's the twisted side, so the coin has now flipped. It's upside down, the coin has flipped now. There's the text if you want to read it, but basically it means instead of good side scoring, it's now twisted side objectives, which are in the ascendancy and can be scored. So just as the enemy hoves into range, you want to start doing damage. So it was very lucky that it came up in their hand. Okay, Audacity markers. Two-Face has initiative, so I'll put theirs down first. Two-Face himself, the gangster next to him, and the 2 ladies, Spice and Sugar, just there. On the Soldiers of Fortune side, of course, Thomas Wayne gets one. I gave one to Infiltrator because she can really use her abilities to manipulate suspect markers, etc., and that domination marker perhaps. And the 2 shooters at the back. Militia has been left out on her own without one. She's probably in thumping range anyway, hopefully for her. So without further ado, let's get on with the hitting of things. Well, the Two-Face crew decided to kick the second turn off with a bang and activated Two-Face himself. He had Audacity, of course he did, and he first of all used his special action to incite Attorney's Allegation, which is a really powerful ability. All friendly henchmen within 8 inches of him gain an extra action this turn, so that'll be the 2 guys up here and our little gangster buddy here too. He then decided he'd do a melee attack on Psycho Pirate before Psycho Pirate Pirate activates and projects a bubble of some sort of horrible emotion like love or fear or something like that. And with his reinforced gloves, his bipolar all came up trumps for him as well, granting him a freebie effort. Psycho Pirate efforted as much as he could to reduce the attack pool. Two-Face put 2 back in to put the effort he put to cancel that out. Sorry, and he hit quite a few times, and Psycho Pirate whiffed every single one of his defense rolls. So KO there. Of course, then another one of Two-Face's rules came into effect, the Judgement Rule, whereby you have to flip a coin if Two-Face knocks someone out. If it comes up good heads, then they remain knocked out. If it comes up bad heads, they're actually removed as a casualty. And I've got a special coin in for this particular purpose, and if I pan down you can see it's come up the scarred face or bad head side up, just to prove there is a good head side. There it is. But yes, it came up the bad head side. So Psycho Pirate, sadly for him, he's deaded. So yes, he's gone. An interesting start to the turn. Two-Face then still has his movement action left. I left him there just to give for illustration purposes. He decided he was going to move up on top of the construction hut thing there. That's where the activated marker is, and that's where he'll be once I cut the camera. Okay, interesting start. Let's see what happens next. Well, what happens next is I forgot to mention that as part of his turn, having taken out Psycho Pirate, he played Time Bomb from his hand. It's a twisted side card which he can now score. Lots of text, we played it in the last game, but for 2 points, having killed Psycho Pirate, or knocked him out, but killed, he chooses 2 suspects on the board. He chose the one next to Thomas Wayne there, and the one over there in the park. An explosion centered on those templates. Anyone under that explosion gets damaged, and if someone is damaged, then the card scores. So both the Militiaman and Batman there take 1 blood damage, and the 2 points scores. Not only that, but to add insult to injury, both those suspect markers get picked up. I did check, it doesn't say they have to be friendly suspects, so yeah, that's a very effective turn for Two-Face. Okay, now we'll carry on. Soldiers of Fortune kicked off and decided to retaliate with Militia. She didn't have Audacity, but she was already in base contact with the gangster here, so she just used her single action to attack him. She, as a resource play from the hand again, Free For All came out for the Soldiers of Fortune, which just meant that she could continue to keep her venom dose in her pocket and activate it anyway this turn. So yes, so under the influence of venom she got 2 free efforts. The poor gangster, if you recall, had enervating 3 from his burst of movement last turn, so he couldn't effort back at all, so she got extra attacks across the board. And yes, after all said and done, she got 3 hits through with her reinforced glove. That's 6 stun, enough to knock him out. And score for the Soldiers of Fortune crew: Search and Destroy for 2 points. We've seen it plenty. She put into at least 2 efforts due to her venom, so yes, and she did damage. So yeah, she did at least 2 hits, and so that's 2 victory points in the bag for Soldiers of Fortune. Two-Face responded with Gangster 1 here, who had a whole bunch of actions available to him. He had Audacity, he was also affected by Eternity's Allegation, and also still inspired by Two-Face up here. So he had more actions than I think any other model has ever had in the course of the game. What he did though, first of all, was to open fire on the Infiltrator up here with his Thompson machine gun, and he did 2 hits. He was hitting on 5s because of her naturally amazing a defense value of 5. Funnily enough, 2 of the attack die came up as hits. It was actually the defense die. It was actually the strength die that whiffed on a 1. If that had come up on if that had been rolled more than a 1, then she'd have been dead, because she's taken 4 blood and 2 stun. She's only got 6 endurance. So if the strength die had come up, that'd be another 2 blood and would have finished her off. Having done so, though, it was still sufficient for him to play heads or heads as an objective from the hand for 2 victory points. Friendly model inflicts at least 4 damage on an enemy model that has an Audacity marker, and she certainly does still have her Audacity marker. So yes, that's come to fruition for the Two-Face crew, so he'll take that. Having done so, he used a manipulate action on the domination marker just to move it a bit closer to Two-Face, and so that when he moved up here it would still be within 4 inches of him. Okay, let's continue. Thomas Wayne activated for Soldiers of Fortune, and first of all, whilst he was still back here, he opted to use his tactical action to shoot at Spice over here. She was beyond his normal range. His handguns are only short range, but so he lost the strength die, but he engaged rapid fire with his special ability to get the dice back, and ended up doing 4 hits for 4 blood, 4 stun to the lady. What a gentlemanly thing to do. He then opted to use his movement to just move into cover behind the billboard here, out of sight of these 2 gents up at the top. He played Global Offensive again from the hand as an objective. We saw it last turn. By the end of the turn, there have to be more veterans on the Soldiers of Fortune side than there are two-faced suspect markers. It's early days yet, and it doesn't look good, but it does allow them to getting this card out and active does allow them to draw other cards that they may score later on, and just gives something for Two-Face to think about. Sugar activated next for Two-Face. She was originally over here. Whilst over here, she used her tactical action. She had audacity to pull out her small caliber Derringer and shoot at Militia. Militia's medium armor reduced the dice pool incoming by 2, and then the invulnerability managed to shrug off the 1 hit that did score on her. It does just chip off her invulnerability that was granted by the Venom Enrage though, so there's something at least. Having done so, Sugar then moved into the middle here to within distract range of Thomas Wayne, and she duly used her special action to do so. That's why he is distracted. As a resource from the hand, the Gamble came out of the Two-Face crew hand. It can't be scored because it's a good side card, so only the resource available. There's the text. Basically, the Soldiers of Fortune failed to name what the top card on their objective deck was going to be, so Thomas Wayne got Enervating 1 there. Okay, right, let's see how this plays out now. Militiaman 1 activated and moved into the middle. He had audacity, if you recall. He moved into a roundabout here so that he could draw a bead and shoot at Sugar, who's just activated. His carbine has 5 dice. It is assault, so he didn't lose any for moving and shooting, so 5 plus the strength die were incoming, and his shooter rule cancelled out any little bits of cover she might have been able to gain from that range. Overall, as you can see, for each doing 1 blood, 3 hits got through on her. She's actually, because he moved, he was only hitting on 5s plus the strength die, which did actually come trumps for him. So yes, unfortunately for that, Sugar is taking some damage. So there you go. No cards played though. Spice activated and moved into whipping range of Thomas Wayne. She was also within teamwork range of Sugar, so she got quite a few attacks. Her effort limit was reduced, so she can only put 2 efforts in, but as was Thomas's from the Enervating he took earlier in the turn, and when all was said and done, 2 hits got through for a total of 4 stun, 2 blood on the old man, and 2 stun from efforts for Spice. No cards played to tie into this, but some damage accruing on the Soldiers of Fortune boss. Oh, and just very quickly, I forgot to mention that during Spice's activation just now, not so much Sugar was played as a resource from the hand of the Two-Face crew. A lot of text there, but it basically allowed this suspect marker for the Two-Face crew to be picked up and used it to cycle the deck a little bit, hopefully get something a bit more special in there. Finally, Spice used her special action to make herself a menace. Therefore, anyone trying to attack her for the remainder of the turn needs to spend an extra action to do so. Okay, now we'll move on. The Soldiers of Fortune elected to use their pass to try and tease out a bit more actions from the Two-Face crew, and the Two-Face crew obliged. Wallace activated, and he used his Winchester carbine to shoot at the militia soldier down here. He wasn't actually, he was just beyond the Veil of Night, so Wallace lost 2 of his 3 dice, but he did use his special action granted by Attorney's Allegation earlier in the turn to activate his precise aim, meaning that instead of hitting on 3s, he was actually hitting on anything but a 1. So yes, that 1 die remaining duly came up a 2 plus, and yes, that's 3 blood damage. And just looking at the stat card, I wasn't quite aware, but due to the time bomb earlier, Militia has actually taken 1 already. He only has 4 endurance, so Militia Man is dead, unfortunately for him. So yes, you only need 1 dice sometimes. Yeah, so a bit of revenge there for shooting at the ladies. Elite Operative finally had to activate for the Soldiers of Fortune. He's the last model this turn that they'll have. Oh no, it's not. They've still got Infiltrate Op. Always forget her. Don't forget her. Anyway, he activated from within the park. He used his assault rifle to shoot at Two-Face, who'd appeared at the top of the customs office over here. And one hit got through. He lost 2 dice to shooting beyond the Veil of Veil of Night, so he only had 2 dice. One of them came up trump. So 3 blood though on the Crime Lord. He then used impaired movement to jump over here and finish his turn in there. No cards played, unfortunately, but we'll carry on now. Sergio activated last for the Two-Face crew this turn. He was originally up here. He, remember, had that +4 inch movement for from Follow Me at the beginning of the turn. He used that as well as taking Enervating 3 to get another bonus 6 inches to his movement to get all the way down the stairs down to here. He still had his extra action from Attorney's Allegation despite not having audacity to put down this suspect marker. And so yes, that concludes his turn. He was not worth him trying to shoot, even if with a blood money token. All the models around him have got armor or whatever, so he'd have ended up with no dice anyway, but he's thinking he's going to get some use in the future because he's moving back into the mix of things rather than just threatening up there. His friend's doing a good job of that already, so let's move on. Ooh. Also forgot to mention, sorry, just before the end, during his turn he played Spice It a Little, Spice his signature card as a resource, sorry, just to put a -4 movement counter on Batman. Okay, now let's move on. The last model for turn number 2 to activate was Infiltrate Op. She's been patient all this time. She first of all she had audacity. She first of all used her tactical action to shoot at the gangster who just shot at her and got 3 hits through with her red dot laser sight, etc. So 3 blood damage because each one of her, it's a very small caliber gun, obviously, as things go. So 3 blood to him, each one doing 1 blood each. Then she decided to move and hack the domination marker over to base contact with where her new position, and this suspect marker moved over from here to here so that she's in better range to start picking it up perhaps next turn. Okay, that's hers. I think she scored the domination marker, but we'll go to the recount phase to confirm everything in just a second. Okay, recount phase now completed. Quite a bit of stun damage came off of each model, 1 point exactly to be precise. For cards scored, Global Offensive did not score for the Soldiers of Fortune. There's still plenty of suspect markers on the board and a decreasing number of veterans on the Soldiers of Fortune side. However, the domination marker, if you'll see, it's over there next to just the Infiltrate Op, so 3 points for Bane, well, not Bane, sorry, Bane's ally, Batman, which is an odd thing to say, but yeah. Okay, no cards played from the hand in the last phase, so we'll move on to turn number 3. Right, turn 3's Raise the Plan and Take the Lead phases are both completed. As you can see, the Soldiers of Fortune played another domination marker for 3 points in the middle there next to Spice. So they're aiming for some, they're hoping they'll be able to dominate the middle of the board, having cleared out some enemies probably. The initiative roll came up an emphatic 6-1 victory for Two-Face, so yeah, Two-Face will be going first again this turn. In the second phase, the Balance of Justice was played by the Two-Face crew for 2 victory points if it comes up, but at the end of the turn, if there's an even number of models are removed as casualties, i.e. killed, this turn they'll score 2 victory points. No way of knowing if that's going to happen, but good to play it just in case. I'll be having to keep track of who dies this turn. For audacity markers, the Soldiers of Fortune crew, everyone left has one, so Militia, the Elite Op, Batman and Infiltrate Op at the back. It was a bit harder to choose for the Two-Face crew because there's so many damaged models and models who need to do things. Two-Face of course got one, that was easy, and the 3 models in the middle, so the 2 ladies and the gangster with the bolt action rifle. Just as an aside, I forgot to mention the gangster down here with the Tommy gun remains knocked out. He didn't pass his recovery roll. Okay, let's get on to activating in turn 3. Well, Two-Face decided he'd make the best use of his team's initiative this turn and activated first. He jumped down from the top of the construction warehouse hut thing and moved into close combat with the already damaged Infiltrate operative. In On the way, he played, where is it? The Gamble. Again, we saw that as a resource. Can only be played as a resource because we're still on the twisted side of the coin for 1 resource point. The Soldiers of Fortune crew failed to guess which card was coming up top of their objective deck, so Infiltrator Op got Enervating 1, which reduced her effort limit, counteracted the fact that Two-Face's Bipolar gave him Enervating 1 as well, so both sides used their 2 efforts, and unfortunately for Infiltrator Op, she whiffed all of her defense dice, and so the 2 hits that Two-Face did get, he needed 5s, remember, and 4s on the strength die, so I'll just prove it by showing you the dice rolls. There's her defense and there's his attack rolls. Work it out for yourselves if you really need to. But yes, enough to do 6 stun damage altogether for the turn's exertions for her, which knocks her out. He then flipped the coin for Judgment, and again, unlikely I know, but he got the scarred face of the coin, so Infiltrate Op is dead due to Judgment, which will mean that the Justice card does actually score for the Two-Face crew. Unlikely that was. He was unlikely. You get to remove 2 models, KO 2 models, and then remove them with the Judgment Rule. But yeah, he did. It does happen. So 3 points. It may never happen again, but hey, it's a freebie card. And having done so, that from the hand, because you can still play an objective from the hand anyway, kill them twice came out. It's a twisted side card. When a friendly model causes an enemy model to become KO or removes an enemy model as a casualty, remove 2 friendly suspects within 4 inches, and there are 2 there, so we'll pick them both up, and that scores another 2 points, so a very high scoring activation for the Two-Face crew. Let's see what the Soldiers of Fortune can do about that. Thomas Wayne activated and decided he was not really into redheads at all, and while still stationary he activated Precise Aim and blew away Spice, unfortunately for her. And yes, although he whiffed a couple of shots, they were all hitting on 2s, including the strength die, so yes, that was sufficient to finish her off. She'd already taken a stack of damage from earlier in the game, so yes, that did that. He then moved into base contact with this gangster here, who will not be able to use his bolt action rifle until he moves out of base contact, so a bit of a spoiling game there. And yes, he's still in range of the domination marker, so yes, pretty successful turn for Thomas Wayne. Sergio activated, and first of all he took a swing at Batman, always a dangerous prospect for any gangster, and yes, he failed unfortunately, but when he declared the attack action he played one of the 2 blood money tokens that the Two-Face crew's been storing up in order to move this other thug who hasn't activated yet 4 inches. It's put him to the front of the construction office. It allows him to be replaced 4 inches, another model with a gangster trait, that is. Having swung and missed at Batman, he moved up into the middle of the board to contest the domination marker, and that concludes his turn. Militia activated for the Soldiers of Fortune. She moved from over here using her super jump and her normal movement. She took her venom dose again, and this time she's actually spent it, so it won't be coming up again. No cards to stop her this time. And yes, she attacked Sugar, who didn't have the benefit of teamwork from Spice being there anymore, so she was an easier target. The venom she took gave her 2 free efforts. Sugar didn't put any effort in herself, but only 2 hits got through when all was said and done. Hitting on 4s and having 4 dice to defend with was actually very beneficial to the sidekick here. And yes, so 2 hits got through for 4 stun damage. Wasn't enough to knock her out, but was sufficient to score Search and Destroy from the hand of the Soldiers of Fortune, so 2 victory points there. Okay, let's move on. Gangster 1 continued the turn for the Two-Face crew. He jumped down from on top of the the construction hut, and he even then gave himself Enervating 2 to run over to the domination marker and move it 4 inches across the police car over here, which neatly takes it out of range of Batman and only just still in range of Militia, but more crucially it's now outnumbered in terms of Two-Face having more models there, so that might just be crucial for that. He couldn't shoot, don't forget, because his Tommy gun has the reload trait, which means he has to spend a turn reloading it each time, so no chance to do that this turn, but he did use it to hopefully prevent some points for the Two-Face crew. Okay, let's move on. Well, Elite Operative decided it was his time to go. He's the only model left, actually, to go on the Soldiers of Fortune crew side. He decided, first of all, he would train his gun on the gangster over here, and he certainly did. He did 3 hits with no cover or anything at all applying, so yeah, 9 points of blood damage is sufficient to take this guy out of the picture. He then moved over to the domination marker just to make sure that Sugar can't go running off anywhere, to try and prevent her from, well, to make sure she stays by this marker. Okay, let's see what happens next. Well, it's the gangster activated next, and he played, just as he activated, heads as a resource rather than as an objective. That as it's the twisted side up, basically he removed the suspect which he'd put down there at the beginning of the game. It enabled him to ignore the reload ability trait of his Winchester, so he could shoot again as a surprise shot in this turn. That's why Batman was so brazen about being down there, but nonetheless he can now shoot, and he did. He shot actually at Elite Operative instead. The light armor reduced his dice pool from 3 down to 2, but nonetheless both hits got through thanks to the high caliber rule, and each doing 3 damage, so 6 points of blood damage to Elite Op will finish him off. Well, didn't even starts him and finishes him actually, so yeah, that was an unexpected shot, but that's the well, that's this deck is very potent for Two-Face if it comes out right. So yeah, okay, let's move on. That didn't score any cards, but it might well go towards the Balance of Justice card started at the beginning of the turn. Sugar was rounding up the actions for the 3rd turn. There weren't even any resource points left to spend, so she just sort of consoled herself with putting down a suspect marker down there and then hopping across here. She can't attack with her Derringer because it also has the reload rule. Despite being potent, it does have its drawbacks, so she couldn't shoot again this turn. So that finishes off all the turn's activations for turn number 3, and I'll go to the recount phase now. Okay, turn 3 recount finished with. As you can see, the domination marker does not score for the Soldiers of Fortune crew, so that's going to be going. At the end of the day, 4 models were removed as casualties this turn, so the Balance of Justice does score for 2 points for the Two-Face crew, so I'll add that to their pile now. From the hand played was Ground War from Soldiers of Fortune for 3 points. Have at least 2 friendly models within 4 inches of the same piece of scenery, which is within or up to 8 inches from the enemy deployment zone, or Militia and Batman are both within 8 inches just of the capital metro station, or many other, several other bits of scenery which qualify, so this bus stop would have done either as well. But yes, nonetheless, 3 victory points solid for the Soldiers of Fortune. Okay, unfortunately this gangster, despite being knocked out earlier in the game, is still seeing little Tweety birds around his head, so he's still out for the count. He'll be missing out the remainder of the battle. Okay, not many models left on the board. Let's see who can score those last turn's points. Right, the final turn is underway, and the take the lead and raise the plan phases are both complete. From the hands, Domination came out once again for the Soldiers of Fortune crew, so there's the marker there in contact with Sugar this time. Don't know if it's going to score. It's very difficult when you've got half as many models as your opponent, but it does nevertheless mean that your opponent's got to focus some attention down there. The Balance of Justice came out in the Raise the Plan phase for the Two-Face crew again. That's the same one as before. Even number of models looking to be removed of the game as casualties. Again, speculative, but you never know. Also coming out, as was drawn and played as an objective, the good side of the coin has come back out to haunt the Soldiers of Fortune. So now cards played can be played as objectives if they are the good side, no longer the twisted side. Okay, moving on to the initiative roll. It was a tie, 5 each. So Batman, there's Mastermind ability comes into the fore, gives him +1. So the Soldiers of Fortune have initiative for the final turn, and audacity markers are very simple this turn, as every model left on the board has audacity. There's since this guy's still knocked out, there was no choice on the Two-Face crew's side. Okay, let's see who can score those last minute points. Thomas Wayne decided to try and contest the domination marker, so he first of all activated his precise aim ability and finished off Sugar, unfortunately for her, and yes, she's dead. It was only just, but she's nonetheless dead. He then moved into contact with said domination marker to make it that much harder for it to be taken away. Two-Face was a little bit too far away from the action now to be able to really do anything, but he did nonetheless put down a suspect marker. He has audacity, plenty of actions to do that with, and he put it down next to this sewer marker, and in so doing played closing argument. We saw that earlier. 3 points potentially, so powerful. There's the text, but basically this suspect and this suspect are both within 4 inches of infrastructure, lamppost, sewer marker respectively. They rolled a 3, so after 3 subsequent activations, if these suspect markers are both still on the board, that would be 3 points scored for the Two-Face crew. So that's a pretty big swing potentially, and yeah, quite frustrating, I expect, for Soldiers of Fortune. Alicia was the final model to activate for the Soldiers of Fortune this game. She had like I thought, she did have a frustrating time. She had cards she wanted to play and score of her own, but she really needed to stop that closing argument that was just played. So she moved over to it with her normal movement and used her manipulate action to reveal the suspect marker, taking it off and thus stopping this objective from scoring for Two-Face. She then used her super jump ability with her special action to bounce back in between her and next to the domination marker to make it that much harder for it to be stopped, shall we say. Okay, let's move on to the Two-Face crew. And actually with that, having looked at the Two-Face crew's cards and what suspect markers are where and what they can and can't play, I've deduced that there's no further scoring to be done for either side in this game except for the domination marker, which the Two-Face crew really can't stop from coming to fruition for the Soldiers of Fortune. So domination will go on the Soldiers of Fortune score pile in the end of the turn. So yes, I think that finishes up. I mean, he could potentially have killed someone and knocked them off of it, but no, he couldn't have killed them. That's the point. Sorry. Both of these people here on the Soldiers of Fortune crew side are wearing armor, which would have reduced his dice to the point where he couldn't actually remove either of them as a casualty. And there's no other guns left. The Winchester guy, Wallace, having run out of ammunition last turn. So that basically finishes that off. Shall I go to the? I'm going to go to the final count now, and we'll see who's won. Right, here we go. Let's see how many points Two-Face scored. 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, 14, 16, 18 points. Not a bad haul. And the Soldiers of Fortune, 2, 4, 6, 9, 11, 14, 17, blimey, 17 to 18 in favour of Two-Face. So yes, Two-Face wins. That was quite unexpected. I thought, I think a different Soldiers of Fortune crew with a different leader and more veterans would probably have cleaned up a bit more. But then if it lands with pots and pans and all that, you just don't know how things are going to play out. It's not that I'm disappointed with how Thomas Wayne did. He just doesn't have the innate scoring ability that Bane does, with the ability just to give out venom doses to score search and destroy, etc., etc. But you just don't know. It's all relative, isn't it? Bane's more expensive than Batman anyway, so that was a really good game. This Two-Face deck things did certainly seem to come together for it this time, much more than in the first game. Every time I was thinking, I could just do with having the other side of the coin about now, the next card I draw would be the other side of the coin, so I could start scoring those objectives instead. At the very end of the turn, both sides were really scrabbling for points. There were potentially lots of other cards that could have been played, but both sides sort of nullified each other out at the very end by forcing them to counteract rather than just putting out points themselves. But that's how the game works. I really like this game. The third edition of the Batman rules is so superior to all the others before, and I'm having so much fun. Even playing solo, it's even better. Trust me, playing against real people, guys. Once lockdown's over, over, and if you do get a chance to play someone else, please do. This is such a good fun game once you get into the nuances of how the cards work. Anyway, I'm going to stop waxing lyrical and get on. I'm Shield Wall 100. I really hope you enjoyed this game. I certainly did, and hope to see you for many more in the future. Please let me know if there's anything you want to in the comments. Give me a like or whatever. I don't really care about that, but yeah, if you want to comment with anything you think I missed, that'd be really useful. Thanks very much, and take care. See you next time.